What's up, everybody? Demon back. Welcome to a brand new video. Every year I do this video. I guess it's kind of a yearly thing I'm going to do from now on. Supposedly, I'm going to try and keep it on June 23rd every year, just because this is really, I guess you can trace it back to here, is where I decided I wanted to continue doing YouTube as a Godzilla YouTuber, and that was with my original 15 things that need to happen in Legendary's Godzilla sequels.
Hello, anybody who is watching this. I would say everybody, but I'm a pretty unknown channel. That doesn't bother me too much. Whatever.
So I will read off the previous two lists from the previous years, and then I'll get right into my new list for this year, because this is 15 more things. So in total, we have over 30 things that need to happen in the Legendary's Godzilla 2. Actually, over 45, because 15... 3 years in a row is 45, right? But we also have some bonuses in here from other previous years, so I guess we have a couple more than that. But let's get right into the previous list. So the initial list from 2015 goes like this: make the wait worth it. That's a given. Keep it realistic, which, as you'll hear in this new list, because the MonsterVerse has already kind of gone away from the realism that we had with Gareth Edwards' Godzilla 2014 with Kong Skull Island, I have to break that rule from the previous 2 years, and I have to, we'll get there at the end, but the original list was make the wait worth it, keep it realistic, continue the story with Dr. Serizawa. So glad that they're doing that. Name the Mutos from Godzilla 2014. I really hope they do that. Show reactions from the public. I still, obviously, I think they need to do all this stuff because it's my previous lists, but this is definitely a big thing that I think needs to be brought into Godzilla King of the Monsters, which, I know that's the working title, but that's just what we're going to go with for this video. Establish Godzilla as the bad guy, so we'll get into that a little bit in this video as well. You can keep Rodan linked to Godzilla, so this was in terms of origins I was talking about. You can keep Rodan's original story very similar to Godzilla's story in the 2014 universe, where they don't really have to be all that different. They can basically both just be big alpha predators from the previous time. Make Mothra's origins mystical, so I still definitely think they need to do that. Keep Ghidorah's origins a secret, but hint at the space monster origins from the Showa era, or at least, I guess I was trying to say, separate his origins from Godzilla and Rodan. Definitely, I think if Godzilla and Rodan's origins, they should be pretty similar, but if they are going to do that, then Ghidorah's origins need to be very different from that. I would love to see the space monster origin hinted at in this movie. Maybe not even directly said. I forgot that I actually wanted that. I think that's a good idea. So that is, I initially, before I reread this list, I would have thought that, I just want Ghidorah to be the space monster that he always was from the Showa era. But I think it's even cooler if he's not directly the space monster, but they hint at the fact that he is. It's never stated, but they hint at it. That's pretty cool, too. So I said keep Mothra good, Ghidorah bad, and Rodan the same as Godzilla. So I wanted Godzilla to be transitioning into much more of an anti-hero in Godzilla King of the Monsters, and so I wanted Ghidorah to be the main bad guy and Mothra to be the main good guy. So then I said introduce slowly, so you have time to build up each character before you introduce someone else. So like Mothra, you get her full story, Rodan, you get his full story, and then at the end, Ghidorah, his full story. Build up to each monster, so that's obviously a given. Give Godzilla more screen time. Michael Dougherty already confirmed that they will. Who knows, maybe they watched my videos. They didn't, but that'd be cool. So I said, tie in some nuclear allegory. Don't give up on the fact that Godzilla needs radiation to survive. So this was my attempt to try and say, have Godzilla come on the land. He can raid some nuclear power plants. He can destroy them. That'll be his transition into being an anti-hero, is that he just needs more radiation to satisfy himself. I think that's a good idea still. Then I said, don't kill them off, which in this video you'll hear my updated thoughts on that. So then my bonus point from 2015 was Oh, I guess this was my bonus point from 2016. So here's my 2016 list. Bonus point is start the movie with Godzilla killing more Mutos. So I wanted to see the movie start out in a very Gamera 3 style where Godzilla shows up and he's just wrecking Mutos in the desert or something like that. That'd be pretty cool, I still think. So then I just repeated a couple because I was really stretching for this list. As you'll see, most of the time I'm talking about King Kong. But I was pretty much stretching with this list. I said, make the wait worth it, keep it realistic, show the public reaction, have Godzilla destroying things, establish Godzilla's power set. They definitely need to do that. Godzilla, as we know so far, is fairly weak in terms of atomic breath. He can take a lot of hits, he can deal some damage close combat, and that's about it. We don't really know much about him. We don't know what his weaknesses are. We know when his gills are hit, it agitates him. We see it all throughout the movie. We see that his skin can be pierced by the Mutos, and we see that nuclear bombs, at least from the 1950s, don't really have an effect on him. But I still think we need a more defined power set for Godzilla so we can really just get our heads around what he can and can't do, what can and can't kill him. Have Rodan as big as Godzilla, have Mothra be smaller than Godzilla, have Ghidorah be bigger than Godzilla. And then here, obviously, this must have been before Godzilla vs. Kong was announced. So I guess it wasn't, so I don't know why this is on here, but have Kong and Godzilla in their own movie. Oh, I think I was trying to say have a Kong solo movie before Godzilla, but at the same time, Skull Island was also announced by this point last year, so like I said, I must have really been stretching. Make a Godzilla 3, which is something we're talking about a lot more recently, which is the future of the MonsterVerse after Godzilla vs. Kong. Have Kong about the same size of Godzilla or smaller. Definitely think Kong needs to be smaller nowadays. Make GVK about the monsters, not the people. So I was talking a lot in the previous video about make it like War of the Gargantuas, where the main characters of the movie are really the Gargantuas. Sonda and Gyra, they are the leading characters in the movie. Also, it's like Shin Godzilla. The whole movie is about Godzilla, whether he's on screen or not. That is all they're talking about is what is this thing? How do we stop it? This thing's called Godzilla. Okay, what do we do about Godzilla? That is the whole movie. Like, it is always about Godzilla, very focused. So I definitely think Godzilla vs. Kong needs to be very focused on the monsters. Have Monarch play a huge role in the future movies. So Kong Skull Island did a great job with that, having Monarch be the reason that everyone went to Skull Island. And then as the Birth of Kong series shows, it's kind of Monarch's fault that people go back to Skull Island, indirectly sort of. It's Brooke's son stumbles upon the what went on Skull Island and is basically like, you know what, I'm going to go back there. So that's the basic gist of the new story. And then I definitely think Monarch will play a huge role in Godzilla King of the Monsters. And I definitely think they'll play a big role in Godzilla vs. Kong as well. Of course, because Serizawa's carried over for sure. The actor's definitely confirmed to be showing up in at least King of the Monsters, so that's good news for us. Then I said, don't kill King Kong or Godzilla. Still think that's true. And don't make the King Kong and Oh, wow. So a full year ago, don't make King Kong and Godzilla team up. This is something that I am preaching nowadays. Please, I really hope they learned their lesson. They should never have Godzilla and Kong team up in their versus movie. That's a terrible idea. It really turned people against Batman vs. Superman when that happened. It's going to turn me against this movie, which I'm looking forward to so much if it happens in 2020. I cannot believe that is actually on my list from a year ago, especially because this list is supposed to be, I guess it's not, because it's Legendary's Godzilla sequels, not just, Legendary's Godzilla 2, but this whole next list is all about King of the Monsters, so don't worry about it. But yes, I just 100% think, making Godzilla and Kong team up is the exact wrong thing to do. It'll really put a sore, I guess you could say a sour taste in my mouth. It'll really make me kind of sit back and just be like, ooh, can I still like this movie? I'm sure there'll be things to like about it, but I definitely won't consider it one of the best if they team up in Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, 2017, here's my modern list, and you're going to see I tried to keep all of these new things very different from my previous ones. So I tried to make them, I try to keep everything. I didn't try and repeat it all. This list, I guess I have a lot more ideas now that it's 2017. Maybe Shin Godzilla gave some new life to me in Godzilla. So number one is have Godzilla have a face in his tail. Number two is have Godzilla shoot lasers out his back. Number three is have Godzilla evolve. No, I'm just kidding. So here's my actual list for 2017. So number one, Gojira, have Godzilla in Japan, something that we missed out on in 2014. Godzilla never once steps foot in Japan throughout the whole movie. So I think, it's kind of crazy. The most iconic monster to ever come from Japan, one of the most iconic franchises to ever come from Japan, probably the most, I guess you could say. They don't even have the character in Japan in the American adaptation. That's crazy. He doesn't even encounter any Japanese people other than the kid on the subway train that Ford Brody saves, and I guess Sarazawa. But he doesn't even even in 98 he still runs into that Japanese shipping boat, which is it's not a good movie, but at least he encounters some Japanese people and causes some damage to him. I'd love to see Godzilla show up in Japan. Maybe with him killing Mutos at the start of the movie, which I don't necessarily know if they should do that nowadays. Now that it's a whole year and I can reflect on that previous list, I don't know if they should start it out like that. But if they do something like that with an action scene right off the bat with Godzilla, have it set in Japan. That'd be really cool. What if something Godzilla does in Japan wakes up some other monsters, as we know from the Monarch map in Kong Skull Island? It looks like, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the after credit scene explained, or the quote unquote two Godzillas in the MonsterVerse video. Go watch that one again. I do talk a lot about how there's these charts all over Japan that Brooks lays out on a table. And what if those charts are actually showing off the location of where the other monsters are, where these paintings of the monsters have been found? So we don't quite know what that means yet, but I would love to see Godzilla in Japan in King of the Monsters. So number two is, and this is in no order of most important to least important, nothing like that. It's just in the order that I thought of it in. So number two is King Ghidorah, make the audience fear him. So make us fear King Ghidorah. He has to be established as this very menacing thing. He's gonna have to be fighting. We know from the movie's description now, he is the ultimate threat. So what we need to see is Ghidorah just level some cities. We need to see some really brutal Ghidorah action, and then we need to see him whoop some kaiju butt. He needs to, Godzilla, as we'll talk about later on in the list, Godzilla needs to go up against Ghidorah and lose, which is, I definitely think needs to happen. So, make us fear Ghidorah. Number three is classic designs. So, redesign Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah, but keep them similar enough to the old version to where any classic fan can look at that and say, yes, that's Mothra, that's Ghidorah, that's, Rodan. So Kong Skull Island, it looks like we're going that way, but, there's been a lot of talk about what if we're going to have a quadrupedal Ghidorah in the new movie. I'm so against that idea. I want a classic Showa Ghidorah, or Heisei, Kaiser Ghidorah from the Millennium. He's okay. That is not King Ghidorah, though. That is Kaiser Ghidorah. He's a completely different character, so I'm totally fine with him looking all weird. But King Ghidorah himself, the classic one that we all know and love, he can't have arms. He has to just be so big, and he has to just use his heads and be powerful. He can't just be give him arms so he can fist fight. He can't do that. That's just not what he ever did. It was always cooler to see him do something different as an attack. It set him apart from everyone else. And if they just give him arms or make him run around on all fours, he just becomes more generic at that point. They don't separate him from any of the other monsters. At that point, he's Anguirus with wings, or he's Gigan without blades or whatever. That Gigan's kind of a weird. I shouldn't have said Gigan because he's very different. But he's what I mean. He's just any other monster with wings and two other heads. So definitely keep the designs more classic. Number four is revamped but classic roars. So what I mean by this is something similar to what they did with Godzilla, where Godzilla's roar, you can tell that it's Godzilla's roar. It is similar enough to the classic Toho roar to where you can listen to it and be like, yeah, that's still Godzilla, that it doesn't completely take away from the character that his roar is different. Do something like that with Ghidorah. I don't care if he's all chirpy like he used to be in the Showa series or like more growly like he is in the Heisei. Rodan, he's always been kind of chirpy, so I don't care what he sounds like either. He's a bird, so it makes sense for him to chirp. Dragons, I guess Game of Thrones has them roaring, not chirping, but I don't really care what noise Ghidorah makes. Just make it something cool. Mothra's always had the same kind of, I don't know what to call it. It's not a roar, it's a chirp too. She's always had the same kind of chirp. I'd like to hear something classic like that come back. It doesn't even have to be the same old sound effects, but I'd like to hear, I guess, something similar to it. Number 5, a killer soundtrack. So one thing that Kong Skull Island really succeeded in is that the soundtrack is just so good. And I'm not just talking about like the music that they paid to use, the pay-to-use music or whatever you call it. I don't know what it's called. Like Bad Moon Rising and all that stuff. First of all, that music is incredible. Like they have such a great soundtrack with that music, but have, your composer soundtrack. Like bring back Desplat. I don't know if you're gonna bring back Desplat, but bring back him. Make some awesome music. All right, and then number 6, this ties in. Bring back Ifukube's music in some way, shape, or form. I've been making tons of custom themes on the channel. You guys have really responded well to them. All Godzilla fans would. All you have to do is, pay Toho a small fee. I guarantee it wouldn't even be that much. It would probably be, if that, it'd be like maybe $100 or a little more. I don't see it even being possible that it'd be like $1,000 for Ghidorah's theme, and you wouldn't even have to use the original Ghidorah theme. You could compose a new theme for Ghidorah, but incorporate that classic theme just like I did. Something like that would be really great to hear in Godzilla King of the Monsters, so I really want to hear Ifukube music return, and of course I want to hear Godzilla's theme play, at least in the end credits. The original real theme, I want to hear it play in the end credits. Now, number 7 is have Godzilla turn to the dark side, of course. So this is something I talked about in a recent, maybe I talked about it in a news update, or maybe I talked about it in a discussion video. I don't remember what video I talked about it in. Now that I think about it, I think it was a discussion video where I said, maybe make the human characters piss Godzilla off in the new movie and make him transition more into an anti-hero or even a villain as a result of it. And I do, like I keep saying, in all these previous lists, Godzilla destroying stuff is on there, and Godzilla being the villain is on there. I think Godzilla needs to transition way more into that, especially because Kong has gone out of his way at this point in the series to save a human being. Godzilla's never... I guess people make the argument to me. I still feel like this Godzilla is more goody two-shoes, I guess, than Kong, because Kong did kill everybody in the helicopters that he could, and he would have not stopped. He was only stopped because I guess he just got bored and walked away. But Godzilla, like, he goes out of his way, in my opinion, to save Ford at the end of the movie there a couple times. So I don't know. I feel like Godzilla's a little bit more of a good guy, but I definitely think if they are going to go this route where Kong is more of the hero in Godzilla vs Kong, make Godzilla the villain. Then you can't just have two heroes fighting each other, and then it just is a bad movie. We've seen it with. I guess it could be a good movie, if it's a civil war, but that's not the kind of movie this is telling. This is telling a straight up versus, which is typically good versus evil, not good versus good. And I guess you could say neither of them are good guys. They're both anti-heroes in their own respect, but I would like to see much more of an evil Godzilla. Personally, that's just a personal preference. I've always preferred Godzilla to be the bad guy in all of the movies. I think Millennium does it right, where he's clearly not the good guy. He'll destroy the city if he wants to, but he'll also show up and save the day if he has to. The Heisei series towards the end there started to do that too. Heisei starts out, Godzilla's just pure the bad guy. He's just killing everybody he can. And then by the end of the Heisei series, he's kind of over it. He's kind of done. He's like, yeah, I'm old. I'm gonna die in a couple years, or even in the final destroy. He's like, I'm gonna die soon anyways. What does it matter? There's no real point in killing you guys. And I guess Destroy starts out with a destruction scene from him, but you get the sense as the Heisei series goes on that he becomes a little bit more of the good guy throughout the series, and we even know from the Ghidorah timeline before the Futurians released Ghidorah on the Earth. Before that happened, Godzilla eventually would have become the good guy and protected Japan. And then in the Showa era, I think the strongest films are the ones when Godzilla is the bad guy. So definitely I think Legendary needs to make Godzilla more of the anti-hero. But that's, this whole list is just my opinion. So don't feel the need to tell me how wrong I am. This is just my opinionated list, so you can make your own down below. I don't care. So then number 8 is make Serizawa the main character of the MonsterVerse, or the overarching character of the MonsterVerse. They could do the same thing. They could bring Houston Brooks from Kong Skull Island back, make him a reoccurring character, but he's old. Like, we've seen him in the Birth of Kong storyline. He is old, okay? So we need someone younger. Brooks' son could be a good addition to the new movie, but I definitely think that Serizawa needs to be the main overarching character who's going to take us from Godzilla 2014 to whatever the final installment of the MonsterVerse is. I think that is Serizawa's character. I think that's kind of like, if he's in Godzilla King of the Monsters and 2014, that's what he's gonna do. And then Xia Zhang was recently cast to be in both Godzilla King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong. She also, I think, could be our secondary overarching character who's going to tie in at least those two movies together. I think Serizawa would be a good connection between all of them. And then, obviously, other than Skull Island, because that movie takes place before he was really prevalent in Monarch. Maybe even before he was in Monarch. I'm not totally sure. I don't remember when he joins based off the timeline that we know of. But you get the point. Make Serizawa the main character. I've also talked about in a previous 15 things, make Serizawa lose that eye, cut that eye out, make him lose that eye. I want to see it. I want to see an eye patch Serizawa again. Give him a lab coat, too. There doesn't have to be a reason for it. I just want to see the classic 54 look of Serizawa in an upcoming film. That'd be awesome. So, make Godzilla turn to the dark side, have Serizawa the overarching character. Number 9, this one's actually very important, Skull Island Easter eggs. We need some Easter eggs, we need some Monarch references to the 70s, they could say, missions in the 1970s, there was a mission in the 1970s to an uncharted island, or like something like that, they can reference the cave paintings from the end of Kong Skull Island. What if we see the son of Houston Brooks? What if we see the son of, or the daughter, I don't care what it is, a son or daughter. What if we see the child of, because I'm assuming that Conrad and Weaver wound up having a kid because they had some chemistry through the Kong Skull Island movie, so what if they have a kid? I want to see their kid return. Obviously they were recruited into Monarch, that's what the after credit scene was showing us, so I'd love to see, a whole bunch of these characters from Kong Skull Island. I'd love to see references to them or their children return in this future of the MonsterVerse. They could all work together and be part of Monarch, and then they could be like, oh, we were out of it. We were not in the 2014. We were not working in the Jungjira incident, so we never had any ties to the Godzilla situation. But now we're being brought in because our parents were in charge of, these other monsters that were found back in the 70s or whenever the cave paintings were discovered. I don't know. Something like that. You get the point, though? Like, have some Kong Skull Island connections, direct connections, not just, hey, like Easter eggs like what next? A giant monkey? Like, not something like that, something stupid. I want to see some actual real life, like, legitimate connections to Kong Skull Island in this movie. Number 10. Now, this one's kind of tricky ish because we still don't understand the full story just yet. But is number 10 is make Millie Bobby Brown have a connection to Mothra. And here's why. Because she's a child, she is a female, and she is popular, okay? So I know that may sound weird, but she is a child, so the audience is going to connect with her and relate to her. She's a female, so it makes sense that a female monster, aka Mothra, would connect to her. And also the Mothra Fairies. She's a child, so as we'll get to my bonus list here, I want some Mothra Fairies in here. I think the Mothra Fairies could connect to a child very easily. We see it in Mothra vs Godzilla. I guess it's Godzilla vs Mothra from the 90s. We see it there too. The Mothra Fairies connect with the child in that movie as well. So I think that makes sense. Also, she's popular for being 11 in Stranger Things, and 11 has some telepathic powers. We now know, not 100%, but we know fairly confidently, based off the new sneak peek of issue 2 of Skull Island Birth of Kong, that one of the main characters in that story arc has telepathic powers. So telepathic powers exist in the Monsterverse. We can see that carried over into Millie Bobby Brown's character. Maybe she will have telepathic powers as well, and maybe she's the daughter of that character from the Birth of Kong storyline. I don't know. But I would hope they wouldn't do that, because then it'd be like people would have to read that storyline to know what the heck is going on. But I think that should just be like a companion piece, and you don't have to read it to understand what's going on. But maybe she has telepathic powers and she can connect to Mothra on a telepathic level too. That'd be really cool as well. Number 11 is give Mothra and Rodan some time to be established before Ghidorah. So this was kind of what I talked about in the first list, which was introduce them slowly and have some build-up. But what I think needs to happen is Mothra and Rodan need to be first act or second act characters. Second act, like at the beginning of the second act at most. They need to be established before the third act, because the third act of the movie is where Ghidorah needs to show up and just cause damage. That's how Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster goes, and I think that's how this one needs to go as well. The second act of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster is kind of when Rodan wakes his butt up, Godzilla wakes up, and then they kind of duke it out for a little while. Mothra shows up and is like, oh shoot, this Ghidorah thing's coming. Then Ghidorah wakes up in the third act. That's kind of the way the movie goes. So I'd like to see something similar to that happen in this movie. So that was number 11. Number 12 is egg to adult. This is Mothra's storyline. I want Mothra to start out as an egg. And I recently talked about in a video, wouldn't it be cool if Mothra was an adult and Ghidorah killed her, or Godzilla killed her, one of them kills her, and then the babies show up and team up against Ghidorah with the other monsters. But someone pointed out to me, wouldn't it be a lot cooler if Mothra starts in an egg, hatches into the baby larva, and then by the end of the movie, when the Ghidorah fight goes on, maybe she's really wounded, cocoons herself, and by the end of the movie, when the Ghidorah fight's happening, she can turn herself into the adult Mothra, she can metamorphosize, and then that Mothra can combat Ghidorah, because we've never really seen that before. I think that'd be a really cool idea. I'd love that. I'd love to see that. I'm sorry I don't have the credit for whoever said that initially, but you know, that's a good idea, sir. So there you go, egg to adult, that's Mothra's story is what I want. Number 13 is who dies, so which kaiju die. So I want Godzilla to make it out of the movie, clearly. I think Godzilla needs to die in a future MonsterVerse movie, and I'll explain that in a future video, but, or I don't want him to die, but I think the foreshadowing for Godzilla's death is well established in the MonsterVerse for a future movie. So, again, not necessarily Godzilla vs. Kong, not necessarily King of the Monsters, but I think this Godzilla will die eventually if the MonsterVerse goes on for another, 3 or 4 movies, but at this point, Godzilla needs to make it out of this one just fine. And then Mothra, I think if you're going to go egg to adult, Mothra needs to live, and in future movies she can have an egg, and then her life cycle can continue. Or if Mothra dies as an adult, she needs to have babies that come back after her, because we can't just have the character's bloodline killed off. Mothra's too cool for that. And then Rodan, I honestly don't care if Rodan lives or dies. I never really thought Rodan was that special, but I don't want Rodan to die in this movie. I think he should make it out of here. And then Ghidorah, I definitely think should die. So I think, we've never seen a Godzilla movie where Ghidorah is killed. Like, we've never seen a. I don't. It's hard to say because we've seen it in Godzilla vs King Ghidorah from the 90s. Ghidorah is killed technically twice in that movie, and then we see it in Destroy All Monsters, but we rarely, I guess I should say, because I don't know, some people might be like Final Wars, but that's Kaiser Ghidorah, that's not the same character. So we rarely see Ghidorah die the first time around, and I think we need to, so that the possibility of a team up of Godzilla and Kong in Godzilla vs. Kong can just be kind of like set down. Like, you can put that down because there's nothing big enough for them to team up against anymore now that Ghidorah is dead. I think that's the way to go. It'll kill off all of that terrible storyline that you could have in Godzilla vs. Kong. And I know I have talked about the future, like what if there's a cool Destroy All Monsters movie where they team up against Ghidorah. Now that I think about it, it would be cooler if they just team up against some original monsters made for the Monsterverse. The Mutos were cool, alright? We can make new monsters. We don't have to rehash the same ones for the next million years. We can make some new ones. The world revolves around originality, so let's get some original kaiju in here after Godzilla vs Kong. So I think Ghidorah needs to die. That just the end of the movie. Ghidorah needs to die. I think it'd be cool, if we had a Destroy All Monsters kind of thing where they just, like, ground pounded him. Godzilla's stomping his heads into the floor. He gets his head's blown off. Something like that would be really awesome to see. And then number 14 is Godzilla beats Mothra and Rodan, but not Ghidorah one-on-one. So I want there to be a one-on-one fight between Godzilla and Mothra. I want Godzilla to win. He is the king of the monsters. That is the working title of the movie, so it makes sense that you really got to establish how awesome and powerful Godzilla is. Make him beat Mothra. Make him beat Rodan in a one-on-one fight. Don't make it even. Make Godzilla just, like, look like he's just this all-powerful being. Like, he can just beat these other two monsters no problem, and then Ghidorah shows up and Godzilla loses. That would really establish Ghidorah as a threat, and then it'd make total sense for Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan to have to team up against Ghidorah, because if Godzilla loses, Rodan and Mothra are going to see that and be like, well, shoot, dude, that was the monster that just beat us, so I guess now we have to, fight this giant Ghidorah monster with him. That'd be really cool. I'd love to see that. And then that's number 14. So number 15, the final official one of the list, is after credit scene with King Kong, not a painting. So what I want to see here is an after credit scene taking place on Skull Island with a full-grown King Kong. We want to see how big he is. We know now from the Birth of Kong storyline comic that the full-grown Kongs are somewhere between 200 to, I'd say, 300 feet. They're somewhere in that range, whereas in Skull Island, he's only about 100 feet. And we know that because the full-grown Kongs in the movie dwarf the biggest skull crawlers that we see Kong fight at the end of Skull Island, and that skull crawler is the same size as Kong. It's around 100 feet. So if the biggest full-grown Kongs are way bigger than that skull crawler, we know for a fact that the Kongs are at least 200 feet, because they're twice as big as it at the very least. So I want to see an after credit scene with the full-grown Kong on Skull Island and set up Godzilla vs. Kong with it, but don't too directly set it up to where you have to see that. Do what Marvel does, where they, Thanos puts his hand in the Infinity Gauntlet, and I'm sure in Infinity War he'll just show up with it, and you'll just be like, okay, he got that at some point or another. So do something like that, where you have Kong on the island, and I don't know, I don't totally know how you could do it, but have Kong on the island and have it somehow set up Godzilla vs. Kong. Maybe Mothra lands on the island, on Skull Island, she's all injured, and Kong sees her and is like, hey, what the heck is that? Or Rodan shows up. What if Rodan showed up and Kong killed him? That'd be kind of crazy. I know I just said don't kill Rodan, but if Kong kills him in an after-credit scene, could you imagine that? Rodan lands on the island, and Kong goes over there and kills him, and then you'd never have to be like, oh, good, Rodan died, because I'm sure people won't be, demanding him to come back, but something like that could be really cool. The point is, just have an after-credit scene, and have it be with King Kong, not a painting, the real Kong on Skull Island. So that's what I want. bonus. So here's the 2 bonuses that I have for this list. Previously I only did 1 bonus, but this one I have 2. So or I guess 3. So number 1, the Mothra Fairies. I want to see them return in some incarnation. They can be full-grown twins that have a telepathic connection with Mothra, or they can be these psychic little tiny fairy girls. I don't care. I just want to see them brought back, and I want them to sing Mothra some songs. I want Mothra to have some themes. I want to hear Mothra's song. I want to hear a new version of it. I don't care. I want to hear the old version, but I want to hear a new version of it. I'm totally fine with that. Bring back Sacred Springs, by the way. That is the best Difficult-based song for Mothra. I'd love to hear that brought back. So, now here's the final bonus, and this one kind of breaks the rules of the previous 2 lists, which is why I have it as a bonus, is don't take the MonsterVerse, so don't take it too far out of the universe's rules that we are already used to. So, what I mean by this is don't break the universe. Don't have too much crazy going on in this movie that's really going to be like, whoa, now we're moving way too far into sci-fi. We are leaving behind this kind of realistic, grounded world that Gareth Edwards set us in. Kong Skull Island took us far enough out of it. The Birth of Kong story arc has introduced telepaths into the MonsterVerse. Leave it there. You don't need to go crazy far. That's why I think if Ghidorah's space origins are going to be brought in here, keep them vague. Keep them, like, maybe hint at them, but don't totally talk about it. And the Mothra Fairies, that's why I'm okay with them being full-grown twins that have a telepathic connection and not tiny fairies, because I love the realism in 2014, and I don't want to see us go too far away from it. So that does it for the 2017 list, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you all for watching. See you guys next time. D-Man out.
You're the devil in disguise. Oh, yes, you are. Devil in disguise. Oh, yes, you are. Devil in disguise. Oh, yes, you are.